Today is a special episode. Number one, I have 3 boxes. Number 2, is it I'm wearing a new necklace? Or is it that I have an extra special guest? You all know how much I love jewelry, but I think I probably love guests even more. So today is extra special because I am so thrilled and honored to have our CEO, Mr. Tim Matthews, on the show today. So we have some stones here, and I'm gonna take a guess that it's from the President's Collection. So we're gonna talk to Mr. Matthews all about the President's Collection. He is quite educated and very accomplished in this business, so I'm gonna try and pull some words of wisdom out of him while we're talking about gemstones. So this is an episode you all don't wanna miss. I think I'm gonna stop talking and we're gonna bring Mr. Matthews in.
I'm so excited to be with you
Are
today,
you?
Natalie.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely.
I know you're a busy man running a company. I'm so thrilled for taking a few minutes with us today. Have you been on YouTube before?
Never.
You've been on camera before, right?
Of course. Something special for you to make you just completely dripping with gems today.
Oh gosh, who did you talk to?
No one. This was.
Is this this is a red box, guys.
This is a different box. Okay, now I want you to wear these today.
Okay, fine.
Okay.
Holy guacamole! Oh my gosh.
All right.
Oh my gosh, that's a whole suite.
That's exactly right.
I'm sorry.
So
I'm gonna take off this necklace.
So we have a beautiful pair of earrings with chocolate covered.
Covered. I like it was
you can
chocolate
eat them,
covered.
right?
Yeah.
So chocolate covered
Okay,
colored
y'all,
diamonds.
Take a look at those.
Like that.
Can you tell us a little bit about chocolate diamonds?
Oh my gosh! Well, it's a brown. It's brown with chocolate. Chocolate is a trade name of Levion. That's also a name that commonly is used to describe these diamonds because they have a chocolate-like color. So it's also a descriptive name.
I have this one back.
And then of course this beautiful orange-colored garnet, which we call spessartine or spessartite.
Right, and it's also called mandarin garnet in the trade.
Yes, mandarin in the trade. So look at this, dripping with carats.
I think this
How you like this?
I'm very happy. I feel like I'm you're a little bit more dressed up than I was, so now I feel like I'm on your...
Listen, Natalie, you're more than on my level.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. First of all, you said we talked about this was a suite. Can you define a suite for our YouTube channel?
And suites can come in a couple of different varieties. So sometimes they come loose. It's a matched set of stones, often of gradations of sizes. For example, in a necklace, you might want to have the larger stone at the bottom, and you might want to have a gradual gradation of size as you go off to the side. Yeah, how about that?
I look great.
Suites are matched sets of stones that are used, to create a nice aesthetic appearance. So in this case, we have a beautifully set of matched spessartine garnet.
Did you purchase this yourself?
I did.
In the President's Collection?
Yes.
Do you want to talk about the President's Collection?
Sure.
Or do you want to talk about the letters and your educational background? What do you prefer?
So a little bit about my background.
Yeah. So
and we'll be very brief on this.
Okay. FGA.
So, yeah, FGA, DGA,
Can you
and
tell us
GG.
what those are?
I'm a fellow of the Gemological Association of Great Britain. That's
Okay.
what FGA stands for. But that basically means that you've completed all of the course requirements to have a certain degree of expertise in colored gemstones.
Okay.
And similarly, you can also be a Diamond Fellow of the Gemological Association of Great Britain, and that's the DGA designation. And what that means is that you've completed a similar course of study for diamonds. So the FGA and DGA are internationally recognized certifications in the industry.
Great.
And then, of course, everybody knows about Graduate Gemologist.
We've got a couple on. Yeah, we've got 2 on the show today, guys.
Yeah, which is great too.
You purchased the President's Collection. So you want to tell us a little bit about the collection, and I assume there's some great gemstones in these boxes. You've already kind of set the bar high with this jewelry.
So actually, the origin of the collection was a personal collection.
Oh, cool.
So I started sourcing beautiful gemstones that I really fell in love with. Gemstones that I thought were particularly unusual, especially for the price point at which we, eventually would offer these gemstones. Unusual characteristics, an unusually great value, something that would be extremely rare in the trade, that would be aspirational for a lot of people. Okay. But at the same time, I wanted something that was very accessible in the President's Collection. And so we decided to source things from even as little as $100 or $500 or $1,000. And many collectors would say, well, that's kind of low end, but actually it's not. It's very fascinating for me to be able to see $200 or $300 items that are especially valuable and rare and are accessible to all of America, basically. If someone's interested in collecting, they can collect at every level.
And that's what I love about Jewelry Television. Our mission statement to open up the world of gems and jewelry, and we really do that.
Absolutely, we really try to do that. So this really is consistent with our mission. At the same time, we have items that we sell for more than 6 figures in the collection as well. $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 items, which are exceedingly rare. Things that have been in vaults for decades, for example, things that have been in family collections, things that have been in museums. Each of these items really has a story. And that's kind of fun too.
So, you know, the gem business is quite global. Have you been around the world? Do you have any favorite travel stories searching for the President's Collection?
Yeah, so I've been around the world several times, but basically I love going to gem mining places.
Okay.
So Lightning Ridge, Australia, for example, and mining for black opal there, being in sapphire mines. You see the conditions under which mining has to take place and the nature behind it, which is so fascinating. So we're actually going to have some pieces from some of my favorite places today. So
should we do that?
Yeah.
All right, so you've seen the show before.
Absolutely.
You're familiar with unboxing? Can you unbox a couple boxes for me?
No, that's your job.
No, you're the guest. I insist.
No. Well, where shall I start?
It's up to you. I assume you know what's in these.
Sometimes they say the smaller boxes are better.
You want to do that?
I don't know.
We have to do the card. You want to pull the card out?
Yeah.
What does it say?
We have boulder
opal. All right, so
this is one of my favorite places. So I need to tell you a little bit about where this comes from. So this is going to come from the province of Queensland, which is a province in Australia, and that's in the eastern half of the country. It's kind of in the northeastern quadrant, if you will. And Queensland is a very important area for opal, as is New South Wales, which is the southern province below Queensland. And the reason for that is that there's a large basin that in geologic time was part of the ocean before.
Cool.
Okay, now the ocean is no longer there, but this is now called the Great Artesian Basin, and it's the largest freshwater basin in the world.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, this basin consists of like 22% of the continent of Australia. So it's a gigantic region. And as the water left, opal formed in fossils and in wood and in rock and so forth. And this particular species of opal, we call boulder opal.
Boulder opal, it's the matrix.
It's the matrix because it's in the boulder, it's in the ironstone, and it can be deposited in several different ways, in pipes and matrices. And in this particular case, because I know what's in the box.
I've actually, some of the coolest things, I think you saw it too, it was the dinosaur bone with opal.
Oh, absolutely. This was a part of a vertebrae.
Yeah, it was a couple years ago.
Like a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. So opalized material can occur in a lot of different ways.
Oh man, that's beautiful.
So this is actually a set. So it's almost 30 carats altogether.
Okay.
And this is something that's really kind of unusual because you don't find match pairs or you don't find match sets.
All right, let's define a set.
So this actually isn't a match pair because these aren't two nearly identical pieces, but it is a set in the sense that these are very complementary, and the brush strokes that you see in the material here, the play of color, extends from one piece to the other.
Take it out of the box.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. All right, guys, and if you do purchase something from the President's Collection, you get this nifty card, and there's a plate that goes on one of those fancy boxes.
So we like to call this is like a piece that we call volcanic fire. Here's the imagery, if you can imagine this. You have this large rectangular shape, which is somewhat tapered. Visualize a mountain, okay? And see all the beautiful color. Now, all of the colors are represented here, so this is not to the exclusion of any of the colors, right? But you have a lot of green in it, so visualize a lot of trees on a mountain. And near the top, the smaller taper part of the boulder opal, you'll see an increasing amount of red. Now, red in opal is amazing.
Top color.
Top color, absolutely top color. But you see these brush strokes and you see the red as imagine the volcano from the mountain starting to erupt, and then the eruption itself, which is embodied in this second piece, this triangular shaped piece. Imagine that as like the flame coming out of the top of the mountain. So the way that you would arrange this, if you were creating a piece of jewelry, yes, you'd be stacking the two.
All right, so I know everyone's distracted by the garnet, but can you imagine that as a pendant? That'd be pretty cool.
Yes. And this is one of the most amazing, rarest pieces of boulder opal that you will find. This actually was in a family collection.
Show you the back end. That's the matrix that Mr. Matthews mentioned that we're talking about that.
Yeah.
Right there.
Yeah, so the brown color is the ironstone matrix, and the opal has settled into this matrix in a certain pattern, which we call a brush stroke. So
you can kind of see it looks just like a
and you can see it's kind of vertical to the piece right now. And as you rotate this piece, one of the things about opal that's really great is that you see different plays of color as you move the piece.
It looks like it dances.
Right, and you can't replicate this. There's no way to synthesize this accurately in a lab. So one of the really great things I love about boulder opal is you just can't duplicate it.
All right, guys, take a look at that.
Almost 30 carats altogether.
That's a lot. What's the next box? I'll let you pick.
All right, let's pick this big box. It's close. We have Tanzanite.
All right, this is actually one of my favorite. Yeah. So I wasn't that familiar with Tanzanite until I came to Jewelry Television. We have a huge inventory here, and I kind of fell in love with it in my first year at JTV.
Tanzanite, beautiful stone. And we have a little monster here.
Yeah,
How
you
about
can say that again.
Yeah.
All right, so tell me what makes Tanzanite. Why did you pick Tanzanite? I know that you love Australia and opal, but why Tanzanite?
Tanzanite is a wonderful gemstone. And one of the things I like to tell people is that the old-fashioned nomenclature, precious stones and semi-precious stones. I hate that.
Yeah, I hate
that. It's so misleading. So in the old days, we used to refer to precious stones as being the stones like diamond, emerald, ruby, sapphire, and so forth. But in actuality, many, many stones are precious. This is a stone that's precious in a lot of ways. It's a one-source gemstone. You can only really find it in Tanzania and maybe some outlying areas in Kenya and
What's the name of that basin called?
So
the Mozambique Belt.
Right, that's right. You have the Mozambique Belt. Now, Mozambique is a country that's south of Tanzania, and then of course you have Kenya, which is north of Tanzania, and then you also have the island of Madagascar, which is off the eastern coast of Africa, across from Mozambique and Tanzania. In geologic time, 1.5 billion to 2.5 billion years ago, before the Earth was separated from the water, basically you had Gondwana, is how geologists refer to this single continent. And that continent of Gondwana had a lot of interesting minerals and gems that were formed that included this area, Mozambique, Tanzania, Madagascar, and interestingly, Sri Lanka, which is an island off the coast of India. I've been there too, but all of that was together in one place at one time.
Hence why I call those like hotbeds, where it's
hotbeds of gems. A little bit about what you see as a tourist in Tanzania. One of the most famous landmarks there is Mount Kilimanjaro, which is an iconic mountain.
You hike the top of it.
And you can see from the Tanzanite mines, Mount Kilimanjaro.
Really? And
the Marilani plains that lead up to the mountain. Of course, many people have heard about the Serengeti.
Yeah.
Which, and many people will go visit animals, on nature trips there, elephants, giraffes, and
lions. Have you done a safari there?
I have.
What's better, the safari or the gemstones?
That's a trick question.
I know.
They both have their merits, let me put it that way. And when you're traveling with your wife, it's especially meritorious if but the gems are meritorious for one reason, and the animals are interesting also.
Did you get her a Tanzanite?
Of course.
Good, I'm glad to hear that.
A great big one too.
All right, so we talked about Arusha.
Yeah. So
have you been in a Tanzanite mine?
Yeah, so I've not been in a Tanzanite mine.
Okay.
We have sent our film crews there many times. I would love to do that. That one of the things that we did when one of our co-founders passed away is we actually made a mural with Mount Kilimanjaro, the Marilani Plains, and a representative Tanzanite mine with his picture in it.
Oh, that's special,
so it's very special to us. One of the reasons why I love Tanzanite is it is a type 1 gemstone, which is beautiful to look at. It has amazing clarity. Almost all the Tanzanite is fairly free of inclusions. And so
we've talked about type 1, type 2 stones here. So type 1, that is a expected lack of inclusions.
Right.
We've had other type 2 and type 3 stones on here. Type 2, off the top of my head, I cannot remember, but type 3 would be like an emerald?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So type 1 is the least likely to be included. Type 3 would be the most likely.
Yeah, and stones they're kind of divvied up between those three. Designations.
Right.
So Tanzanite is type 1, which means that if you're looking at this with your naked eye, you're probably not going to see any inclusions. Remember, all flaws aren't fatal, so inclusions can be
Inclusions can be very interesting.
Yeah,
I love to talk about inclusions too, but with Tanzanite, you're not likely to find inclusions.
Right.
The second thing I like about Tanzanite is that it's a pleochroic mineral.
Okay.
Now what that means is that there are multiple colors depending on which axis you're looking at. In the case of Tanzanite, you can have a couple of different kinds of pleochroism.
Okay, so I see blue.
Yeah, so you're typically going to see blue and violet, or maybe
purple,
a different, or purple, right? Or you may see blue and violet and, let's say, a brownish kind of a color. So there can be a couple of different varieties of pleochroism, but Tanzanite in its natural form is a trichroic, which means 3 colors in nature, okay? Now, sometimes that can be damaged because of treatment. If it's heated in a certain way, it can become more of a dichroic gemstone instead of trichroic. So that's something to keep in mind. But this is a beautiful trichroic dichroic gemstone in the collection, beautifully free of inclusions. Here's something else about Tanzanite that I really love. A lot of different gems can be synthesized in a lab.
Okay.
And now I mentioned boulder opal. You can't really recreate boulder opal.
We actually just did an episode about lab-created CZ moissanite and lab-grown diamonds. So we've, on the channel, we've talked a little bit about lab-grown stones.
You can't reproduce Tanzanite. You cannot synthesize it.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's impossible to synthesize correctly. Now, what you can do is create a piece of glass and color it blue.
It wouldn't be nearly
It wouldn't be dichroic, it wouldn't be trichroic, it wouldn't have any of the natural characteristics of Tanzanite, and that's really not a synthesis. That's just a simulant, if you will. So Tanzanite is very rare. It's rarer than diamond, actually, in so many different ways, even though on a per carat basis, it's less expensive than a diamond.
Rarity is a tough word in this business.
It is, very tough.
No one really likes to talk about rarity. It's kind of hard to define.
So this is almost 55 carats. I think it's 54.6 carats.
Got a good memory. That's
all right. So it's a trillion cut. One of my favorite cuts, actually. Trillions are, among some people, not as popular as, for example, a round or an oval, but I think a trillion makes a beautiful pendant.
I like them. I think they're very regal looking, and especially with the colors. So we've got that mixed cut trillion. Everyone, this is what a roughly 55 carats looks like.
So let's talk about the color also. This color is very regal. In fact, if you were trying to simulate a very expensive sapphire, for example, this will be a multi-million-dollar piece in sapphire, multi-million-dollar. I've seen pieces this large in sapphire in Sri Lanka, and I know what they go for in the marketplace there, and this literally would be a multi-million-dollar piece in sapphire. A beautiful color, just like a sapphire that you might find in Ceylon or Sri Lanka or in Burma.
It's mesmerizing. You can host the whole episode. I'm gonna just look at the stone. So we've done opal, Tanzanite, last box.
All right, so this is one I really remember buying because I fell in love with this piece. And actually, we're going to show you one of two pieces that were virtually identical in nature. This is
my favorite.
Okay, so this is
one of my favorite gemstones. Did you know that?
No,
I love these.
Really?
Yeah, so I lived in Brazil for a while, and my favorite restaurant in the mining town I was living in was named Trapiche. So I would go there like a couple times a week for Brazilian food.
So for all of our Spanish friends, what does Trapiche mean?
It is, I think it's the spokes on a
grinding wheel.
Yeah.
Grinding wheel,
right. Or it was the grinding wheel or the spokes on the grinding wheel, because it talks about...
Well, it was named Trapiche Emerald because it reminds one of a grinding wheel because it has spokes. So let's take a look.
Okay.
All right, so this is about 24.78 carats, almost 25 carats.
I love
Colombian
these.
material. Now, virtually all of the Trapiche has come out of Colombia.
Right.
There are some in Brazil, but for the most part, Trapiche is unique to Colombia. So let's take this out, and you're gonna notice a couple of things in this stone.
It's so clean.
Yeah, it has beautiful color. Most Trapiche is dirty looking. A lot of Trapiche is grayish.
Almost opaque.
Opaque,
it's kind of gross. This is beautiful.
This is absolutely gorgeous. This is, I'll flip it around for the camera.
Okay, so you can see the spokes that we talked about.
Right.
I can't believe there's virtually no inclusions.
Right.
For an emerald.
It's very clean. And what you have here is basically you have a hexagon in the middle.
Right.
And we call that a hexagonal core. And then you have, from the corners of the hexagon shape, you have spokes radiating outward. Now, why do you have this? Well, this is carbonaceous material, typically. It can be a lot of different things. Albite, it can be just carbon, it can be lutite, it can be a different material, but basically it's pushed aside as the emerald is crystallizing around us. It's basically filling the gaps as these 6 crystals are growing.
Sorry, I don't want to blind you. A little bit more visible. I mean, it looks like candy.
Yeah, it
but
does.
It's
like a gumdrop.
So where'd you find this? Did you buy this yourself in Colombia?
So I did. I was not in Colombia when I bought this. I bought this at a trade show, and there's another piece in the collection that's essentially the same piece. I bought them as a match pair, actually. But they're so rare and so unusual that I felt like that they should be broken up.
Would you ever sell this, or are you going to keep it in for JTV to always?
Well,
for the right price.
For the right price, I guess. But the thing about the President's Collection is that all of these pieces we are proud to own and own indefinitely because they are very special. In this particular case, the clarity is amazing. The gemmy color of the emerald is amazing and very atypical of most Trapiche that you find.
Wow. No, you've been to Colombia. You've
I've
been
not.
to the Emerald. Oh,
No, I
okay.
haven't. I would love to go. Especially the 3 major mines there that are the most famous. I would love to maybe take a little tour.
YouTube trip.
Emerald, of course, can be found in a lot of different places. Most of it's colored by chromium,
Okay.
as people know, but in some cases it's colored by vanadium. For example, some of the African material, you would typically find it colored by vanadium. And speaking of which, we talked about the Tanzanite, but we didn't talk about why it's the color that it is, but that's
Right.
vanadium too.
Yeah, that's what I think is so cool in the gem
Yeah.
business. Chromium covers emeralds.
Right.
And what else?
All kinds of different
Yeah,
things.
I mean, we can't-
But you can't necessarily predict, what color it will be. You have blue or violet in Tanzanite, but it's vanadium.
That's what's really cool about these elements is that you really don't know what you're gonna get. And it just depends on that chemical composition. And we've talked about on the show a lot, I'm a huge foodie.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about how gemstones is kind of like baking and each recipe is different. So you may put sugar in one recipe and you get cake,
Mm-hmm.
put it in another and you get cookies. That's exactly how gemstones are. And it's so basic, but it's pretty cool. You know what's also distracting
special item.
is the polish on it too. I mean, it's reflecting off these lights. You can't.
Yeah. Now, interesting you mentioned that. So sometimes these are polished to create a cat's eye effect. This particular one does not have a cat's eye, I don't believe. In very rare cases, though, the 6 segments that are the gemming material can actually be cat's eye material.
Oh, I didn't know that. I don't think I've ever seen that.
I don't think I've ever seen one either, actually. They're even rarer, but that can happen in some cases. Just depends on the arrangement of the inclusions inside.
I think it's really neat when jewelry has Trapiche emerald in it.
Yeah.
You've seen that quite a bit. I think we probably had some of that here at
We
one
did.
point. Yeah.
We did, but much smaller pieces and not nearly
Not
as
as
gemmy.
clear. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so tell us, I've heard Gemmy used a lot at JTV. Can you tell?
Jimmy, well, you mentioned food, so think gumdrops.
Yeah.
Right? Think those luscious, bright colors
Jolly
that
Ranchers.
Jolly Ranchers, right? Or Sour Patch Kids, or whatever. Big, bright colors. That's what we like to see in gemstones. I don't want to see gray, particularly. I don't want to
Brown
see.
is cool. I mean, there's
Brown
great,
can be
beautiful
cool, like,
brown,
like the chocolate diamonds.
like what I'm wearing.
Right.
I don't think I've ever seen a chocolate diamond before. I think, and this is definitely the first time I've ever worn one.
We call them mocha diamonds at JTV.
I like that.
Hey guys, this was such an awesome episode that we had to split it into 2 parts. Stay tuned next week to learn more about Mr. Matthews and the President's Collection in part 2.